Hey everybody, today we're going to be reading chapter 3 of 1st Chronicles, and after I get done reading scripture, I'm going to explain what I think about it, how I feel about it. And I'm not an expert in scripture at all, so please do not lean on my understanding, but trust in the Lord for understanding and for guidance. And if I mispronounce any names, places, people, words, anything like that, I do apologize. And as always, I'm reading from my Bible. It is the New International Version, so the NIV for those who want to follow along. And before I get started, this chapter is a genealogy, so so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read some of the names that I recognize, and then I'll tell you their story, and then I'll tell you some lessons that I learned from their story. So without further ado, let's get started. So this chapter talks about the sons of David and the kings of Judah. So David, as you guys already know, he was a shepherd, and he was tending his sheep. I believe he's the son of Jesse. David, the son of Jesse. Jesse had, I'm not sure how many sons he had, but he had a lot of sons. David was his youngest. David was overlooked, ignored, just neglected by his family. Was not really considered of any importance, because a prophet had came to Jesse's home and asked to see all of his sons, and Jesse had every single last one of his sons come forward except for David. They completely forgot about him, didn't care. He was out there taking care of the sheep. So, but the prophet was looking for David, though. Didn't say that to them because obviously, for obvious reasons, but was looking for David. Jesse had to tell the prophet that, he does have one more son, David. He was out in the field taking care of the sheep or whatever. Told Jesse to bring his son David here. His son was brought toward the prophet, brought to the prophet. And the prophet ends up anointing David as the king of Israel, just like, the Lord had instructed. So, even after that, ceremony and stuff like that, David still worked inside of the fields for a bit, taking care of the sheep. And taking care of the sheep is not it's not no insignificant job. That's a very important job, because the Lord himself is the good shepherd, and we, his children, the children of God, are like his sheep. We need him. He takes care of us, he provides it for us, he guides us, feeds us, clothes us, shepherds us, protects us, gives us a roof over our head, protects us from danger and stuff like that, just like a shepherd does for his sheep. The sheep, they are, not the smartest. They do get into a lot of trouble. They are needy, they need help, they need protection because they cannot protect themselves, so they follow their shepherd. They know their shepherd's voice, will not listen to anyone else, and they follow their shepherd, so that is why we are considered, the Lord's sheep. So, and the Lord will leave the 99 in order to go find the one, the one sheep that drifted away and became lost, the lost sheep. That is what shepherds do, because sheep are not the smartest, and they often wander off and get into trouble. So the shepherd, has to always go and find that sheep and bring it home. It has to protect it from whatever danger. It could be a lion, it could be a tiger, it could be a bear, it could be whatever. And the shepherd got to fight in order to get his sheep. So David ain't no weakling, Like, David was out here fighting lions, tigers, and bears and stuff to protect his sheep, And that's what you gotta do. So, David was out here, a very important job. He was out here protecting his sheep, you know. Plus, him shepherding his sheep, one could also say that was preparing him to be a king of Israel, because the Israel were supposed to be, you know, the children of God, set apart, you know, was the people chosen by God. So if David's going to lead the people of Israel, then he needs to learn, he needs to know how to be a shepherd, right, of some sheep. And that's what he was training to do the whole time. So, plus, the wonderful thing about the shepherd is that he knows all of his sheep by name and stuff. I love that so much. He knows all of us by name and everything, and he knows us better than we know ourselves, and he sees things that we can't. So when he asks us to do something, when he tells us to do something or whatever, we got to jump and do it, because it's for our protection, it's for our own good, truly. So David's job was awesome, being a shepherd. But, you know, people often look down on that, because, you know how humans are. So, when David was anointed and everything as king, he was still, you know, shepherding his sheep. But then Goliath came along. I think it was the Arameans or whatever enemy they was. You know, Goliath came along, the giant and stuff, and we needed somebody to slay the giant. And David's brothers were in the army and stuff. You know, they wouldn't step up, and slay the giant. But David stepped up. David stepped up, and he was like, you know, you come at me with sword and shield and everything, you know, but I come at you in the name of the Lord of Heaven's armies, you know, like I'm going to defeat you in the name of the Lord. So the king, I think it was King Saul or whatever, gave David his armor to wear. But David was like, you know, I can't wear this. I can't fight in this. You know, I'm not used to this. I'm finna go out here as myself, and I'm gonna kill him, with my own weapons, you know. So David had a slingshot, and he put a rock in there, or whatever, because he had some rocks on him. He took one rock and everything. He slung that mug, and he killed the giant Goliath. Yep. The Lord was with him, and David ended up becoming king. Yep, because Saul had fell out of favor with the Lord, because he was disobedient. He did something disobedient. I can't remember what it was, but because of that disobedience and everything, he lost favor with the Lord, and the Lord had to anoint another king of Israel, and that's why he chose David. So, and David ended up becoming king of Israel. He killed a lot of Israel's enemies and stuff, and he was just a righteous man, and was always doing what was pleasing in the Lord's sight. The one thing that David did that wasn't pleasing in the Lord's sight was his affair and everything with Bathsheba, who was married to Uriah at the time. So he had slept with her, got her pregnant, and he tried to get Uriah to go home and sleep with his wife, so that way his wife could say that Uriah is the one that got her pregnant. But Uriah didn't ever go home, so there was no way to hide that Uriah's wife, Bathsheba, got pregnant by some other man. So basically, David ended up killing Uriah and taking Bathsheba as his wife. So that was a disobedience that David did, and because of that sin, the Lord had took the child of Bathsheba and David, that was of course made out of wedlock, and he also allowed some of David's concubines to be taken by another man sexually. So it was all a just punishment for David, you know, a just consequence for David for his disobedience, because it mirrored exactly what he did to Uriah. But that was the only thing that David did that I remember. Other than that, he repented of his sin and everything, and he continued to be righteous to the Lord and obey him, you know. So other than that, David was pretty much, for the most part, righteous and everything, and did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight. That was the only disobedience that I remember that he did. That was the only one. But what I learned from David's story is that I love the fact that, you know, no matter what David was going through, he always consulted the Lord. He always prayed to the Lord, and he didn't move until he got an answer from the Lord. You know, I love that. And the Lord always spoke to him, and David always listened to his instructions and obeyed them. So I loved his relationship with the Lord, you know. I also love that David was not perfect, you know. That even though David sinned and everything, you know, he confessed his sin, you know, admitted that he was wrong, you know, he apologized for that, he asked for forgiveness and everything, and he truly did repent, because there was no other sin that I remember reading about, you know, in David's story, you know, after that. So, like, he truly did learn his lesson. And I just love David's story so much. It's like what the world looks at as insignificant and everything, God sees in another way, you know. And I learned that, like when it comes down to like my education, my college education that I've gotten, you know, the world might see that as insignificant and everything, you know, as my job, you know, not meaning anything, you know, that education not meaning anything. But the Lord does not waste time, and any education, anything that you've learned, he will utilize, you know. The Lord takes everything and works it together for your good, you know. The devil might have meant something that was done to you, you know, for evil and everything. The Lord, the world might, you know, do some evil things to you and everything, call you insignificant or whatever, you know, say that you ain't worth anything or whatever, you know. But the Lord takes everything and works it together for your good. You know, if you got a low credit score and you're trying to get a home or whatever, the world might see your credit score as insignificant or whatever, but the Lord always has a way. And if you want a home, and the Lord cares, obviously, about everything that we care about, you know, because we his children and stuff. You know, so if you are a child of God and everything, the Lord loves you, you know, and he cares for you and everything. Everything that you care about, he care about. So if you want a house and everything, but you over here tripping off this credit score, shoot, the Lord gonna show you something. Shoot, you might end up getting a house without that dang credit score, because, you know, the Lord is who is in control, you know. The Lord loves all of his creation and everything. It's just he hates the sin, you know, that we commit and that we do, you know. Now, if you ain't for the Lord, shoot, he ain't for you, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you just out here being wicked, just sinning and just being a child of the devil and everything, then that's on you, you know, that's what you chose, you know. But for those who love the Lord and everything, you know, and the Lord don't want you to end up like that anyway. You know, he don't want you to be a child of the devil. He wants you to be his child, you know. But you got to choose him. You got to follow him and stuff, you know. He love you, but, you know, I mean, if you choose to be wicked, that's your choice, and he got to treat you accordingly, you know. But you know, he loves all of his creation and everything. He loves his children, and he knows all of us. He knows our hearts and stuff. And for those who love him and who follow him and everything, he is not going to allow you, you know, to make any mistakes or do anything, you know, that's gonna really hurt you. You know, he gonna protect you and stuff. Now, some things we gotta go through in order to learn lessons and stuff like that, but we already know that, you know. But David's story is awesome. I love it. He ends up shepherding the people of Israel well. He does, because he was a warrior, always protecting the people of Israel from all his enemies and stuff like that. He was amazing. Then I'm looking at all of the other names. I know that David reigned in Jerusalem for 33 years. He had some children born to him and everything, you know. And then there was David did have a daughter named Tamar. I believe Tamar was unfortunately, you know, raped by one of her half siblings, like half brother or something like that. I can't remember, I think. But the reason why I brought that up is because this half brother was supposedly, he said that he loved Tamar, but he was actually obsessed with her. There's a difference, you know, between, you know, love and obsession. And he was obsessed with her because he just wanted her body, you know. He just, you know, like, that's it, you know, because if you truly love someone, you be willing to marry them. You do whatever you got to do, you know. You go through the proper channels, you know, in order to marry this person, you know, in order to make it legal and everything before you do the sexual acts and stuff. But this man was just obsessed with her because he went through some very tricky, you know, malicious means in order to, you know, have her, you know. And she offered marriage. She was like, you know, if you truly love me or care for me or whatever, then you would marry me, you know. That way you could have me all the time as much as you want, you know. Like, why go through this act of, you know, deceiving me and trying to, you know, rape me or whatever? Like why would you do that, you know? So he didn't listen to her or whatever. He ended up, you know, doing that act and stuff. And as soon as he was done and everything, he just instantly hated her and wanted nothing to do with her. That's why I was like, he was obsessed with her. Because a man who truly loved you, he would never do that to you. So, so with Tamar and everything, she ended up in mourning or whatever after that, you know, because she lost her innocence in such a horrible way. And I think she just ended up dedicating her life to the Lord or whatever. She didn't marry or anything like that. And I brought up her story in order to say that for us women out there, you know, whether you still have your innocence or not, you know, don't give up the most precious, the most important part of yourself, you know, for any man, you know, unless it's your spouse, you know. Like, basically wait till marriage, you know, wait till marriage, because, you know, that's the way the Lord intended it. And you know, it's just not worth it, you know. Like, you don't want them problems, you know, because when you have sexual intercourse with someone, you know, you end up tied. It's like you end up bonding with them, you know. And you don't want those problems, you know. Like, whatever they going through, whatever demons they got, whatever the heck, you don't want that on you. You don't want to deal with that. So it's just best for you, you know, to protect yourself, you know. Keep your standards and everything, you know. Like, you want to wait till marriage, then wait till marriage, no matter what anyone says, you know. Like, the Lord wants the same thing you want, like, especially if it goes according to his will, you know. Like, I'm waiting to marriage, you know. I'm not going to give myself up for anyone, you know. Like, the Lord blessed me and introduced me to the man that I'm supposed to be with and everything, you know. He introduced us to each other and stuff, and we're waiting for marriage, you know, as we should, you know, because that's the way the Lord intended it, you know. He's not going to allow us to be together sexually, you know, without marriage first, you know? So yeah, that's what I learned from Tamar. I love the fact that she stood up for herself. You know, she was willing, you know, to marry him and stuff if he truly, you know, wanted her and everything, you know. But he wasn't trying to marry. He was just trying to have her sexually. That was it, you know. And it's just unfortunate what happened to her. And I know I would be devastated, but yeah, I had to bring it up because I saw her name and I remember her name. And men, you know, if you truly love a woman and everything, marry her before, you know, you have sexual intercourse with her, because, you know, that's our most precious thing and everything. To y'all, you know, to men, y'all most precious thing might be y'all money or whatever, you know, y'all resources or whatever. But to women, you know, it's our, you know, purity and stuff. And, you know, like, respect her by marrying her before you have sexual intercourse. You know, we want security. We want to know that we're safe, that we're secure, you know, that the man that we choose to give ourselves to and bear children, you know, for, you know, which is a very dangerous thing for us, because that you know, like, we're literally, you know, growing in our bodies a whole human being. You know, we have to share, you know, our nutrients and our food and everything with this living being. You know, our bodies are literally like basically after giving birth to a baby, like, you can literally end up with a lot of health problems. Like, it's very dangerous, basically, the whole childbirth, the whole pregnancy, baby business. It's just a lot. You know, women die in childbirth and stuff. It's, like, really dangerous. Like, a woman risks her life, really, when she, you know, gets pregnant and has a baby, you know? Like it's that's why they say that we sick and stuff when we pregnant, because, I mean, we are. Like, it's a dangerous thing. But you know, like, we're risking a lot. You know, we're risking our lives in order to, you know, have children and stuff, you know. So you know, like, please marry her, you know, before you have sexual intercourse with her, because, you know, we're giving you our most precious thing, you know, and we're risking our lives in order to bear you children, you know. So we want to make sure that the man that we choose, you know, isn't gonna, you know, mistreat us. We're making sure that the man that we choose is gonna, you know, love us and care for us and provide for us, you know, and the baby and stuff, the children and everything. Like we want to make sure that you're not taking advantage of us, you know. We're not just gonna give our most precious resource to just, you know, our most precious thing to just anybody. You know, just like a man protects his most precious thing, which is his resources and stuff, we protect our most precious thing, which is our body, you know. Like, it's precious to us. It's a very special and beautiful thing when a woman, you know, gives her, you know, herself to a man, you know, who truly loves her and stuff. That's why the Lord designed sexual intercourse only to be done between spouses, between married couples, you know, between a man and a woman, you know. Like, so I look forward to the day of being married and everything one day, and having children and stuff with my husband. I look forward to that. It's going to be a very beautiful thing. I'm not concerned with the whole childbirth thing. I mean, like, I have faith that the Lord is going to make sure that I'm okay and that the children are okay and all that stuff. You know, if I end up going through some health problems or whatever, I mean, that's just my cross to bear. But, you know, like, it comes with it, you know. It happens. But But yeah, I just want everyone to do stuff the right way. Like live your life the right way. You know, the Lord designed it that way for a man and a woman to be joined together in marriage, and then for there to be sexual intercourse, and then for there to be children born, you know, through marriage, you know, not out of wedlock. You know, like the reason why the Lord designed it that way is because it needs to happen that way. You know, that's the right way that it needs to be done. He wants to make sure that his daughters are taken care of and are with the right man before they just sacrifice their lives like that. Like, literally. So, you know, let's just do the right thing, women. You know, be careful, you know, about who you choosing. Really, you should let the Lord pick for you like I did. Like let the Lord show you who your husband is and you be with that person. Don't be out here trying to date and stuff. I mean, like, you can be out here, you can make yourself known. Like, you can go outside and make sure you outside so he can find you, you know, because in the Bible it does say, you know, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. You know, so you can be out here and make sure that he find you, that he is able to find you, you know, that you're not all stuck in the house. But, you know, like let the Lord tell you who your man is, in all honesty, because we be picking, we sometimes I don't know if we got good judgment, because we be picking some people and I be looking like, yeah, no, obviously I was tripping, because the Lord sees things that you can't. So, you know, it's just best to let the Lord choose for you, you know. And then men and everything, well, come find us. Shoot, listen to the Lord and be with the woman that the Lord tells you to be with, you know. Like, because he tells you to be with her for a reason. You know, that's your woman for a reason. You know. Being equally yoked is a wonderful thing. But let me see. Solomon, y'all already know Solomon. That's one of David's sons. Let me see. What happened with Solomon? Oh, Solomon. Okay, so Solomon, I know that he became the king of Israel. Well, the king of Judah. He was doing what was pleasing in the Lord's sight so much to the point where the Lord was like, you know, ask me for anything and I'll give it to you. You know, you can ask me for one thing or whatever and I'll give it to you. And Solomon asked for wisdom. And the Lord was pleased with what Solomon asked for. So he not only gave him wisdom, but also wealth and stuff like that. So Solomon used his wisdom in order to solve a bunch of problems and to make Judah, you know, prosperous and stuff like that. But he also used his wisdom. I see this a lot on like YouTube or on TikTok or whatever. I call it Christian talk. But because I only watch the Christian ones. But yeah, he used his wisdom in order to raise up females. Because he ended up with, alright, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all. He ended up with 300 wives and 700 concubines. Or maybe it's the other way around. But basically, he ended up, because a concubine is just a wife too. You know, I don't know. Basically, he ended up with 1,000 wives altogether. He ended up with 1,000 wives. So yeah, Solomon was out here, you know, using that wisdom of his to get females. I mean, not only to rule, you know, Judah, you know, Israel and stuff, but, you know, also to get females. So it is what it is. This is why I think the Lord just wanted us to have one, like a man, because literally it says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. It doesn't say he who finds wives, like as in more than one. It said he who finds a wife. Just that's one. That's just one. Now, of course, somebody could try and spin it and be like, you know, somebody could try and spin it and be like, it don't say how many times you got to find a wife. You know, you get to find a wife. I'm be like, you know what? Like, the Lord designed a man and a woman to be together, not a man and multiple women. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm pretty sure that he don't want you to have more than one wife. You know what I'm saying? But it's okay. It's all right. I can't remember where this came from. I just thought about this. I don't know if this is in the Bible or not. I have to look it up. But I think somewhere I heard where like if you have more than one wife, then you have to treat both of them equally. Like, you have to provide for them both equally, you know. Like, you cannot treat one better than the other one. Because if you do, then you got to let the one that you wasn't treating so well go. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're going to have more than one wife, then you got to treat them equally. Otherwise, you can't have more than one wife. So, can't remember where I've heard that from. If it is in the Bible, that's awesome. And if it's not, then that's okay. Because I believe that every man should only have one wife anyway. But, you know, it's a lot easier that way. It's a lot easier on everybody, you know, that way. To just have one woman that you love and you just cater to and just give everything to. You know, having more than one wife sounds very stressful for the man. I mean, of course it's going to be its own level of stress for the woman, but I mean, it just really seems stressful for the man, because like what are you going to do? Like, you got to treat both of us equally. You got to juggle all of us equal, like the same. Like, I don't know how you going to do that. And then you having children with the both of us. So it's like double the children. I don't know. But yeah, Solomon was out here, he was wise. He was doing some stuff and everything. He was doing what was pleasing in the Lord's sight and stuff. It's just the wife count was ridiculous. But I mean, hey, David had a lot of wives too. I still don't agree with that either, but you know. Now, some of those wives, though, I do understand why he chose. Like, it was some of them where you actually, like, got to, like, you know, hear their story. Like, as you read the story of David and stuff, you'll see why he married certain women, you know. And certain ones, okay. I see why you married them, okay. You know, I'll agree to that. You know, I'm okay with that. You know what I'm saying? But other ones, I'm over here looking like, why? Why did we do that? Why did we do that? Why do we need more? The righteous women of God that he married, okay. All right. Okay. I can deal with that. Especially the one where she saved her. Where he saved her from that evil husband of hers. Like, yeah, that one, yeah. I'm glad you married her. Keep her. Shoot. But everybody else, I don't know. But it'll be fine. It'll be alright. The other people, hold on. It's one more person I gotta speak on real quick. And we just read about him in 2 Kings, you know. And that's Josiah. A descendant of Solomon and David and stuff. Like him, he did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, and there was no other king like him. He tore down them Asherah poles and all of that stuff, them high places, all of that stuff. You know, Josiah was out here working. Shoot, he read the law of Moses and got the and got all Israel, to be about their business. Like, he was out here like, y'all gonna do the Passover celebration, y'all finna do it, y'all y'all need to obey the Lord. I mean, the Lord still punished Israel and everything for all of the years and stuff that they was, you know, rebelling against him and stuff. But I mean, Josiah though was out here putting in that work, you know. So yeah, we gotta clap it up for Josiah, because he was out here putting in some work. But other than that, I think that's the only person, that was the last person that I wanted to talk about. Because all these other names, I can't necessarily remember their story. So but yeah, that's all I gotta say though. Thank y'all so much for listening. I love you. Jesus loves you, and have a blessed day. Bye.